Governor Rhee, it's good to see you here in Washington today. We were both talking before, perhaps back in 2008, when we first met, when you were on the staff of the FSC, the Financial Supervisory Commission. And of course, I was at Moody's at that time, as we were upgrading Korea after the IMF crisis. But here we are in Washington, D.C., and you're attending the IMF World Bank, the IMF meetings. And there's also a G20, I understand a G20 finance minister, central bank governors meeting here today. Can you tell me, in regard to both of these meetings, what are the key issues of these institutions that are relevant to the Bank of Korea?
First of all, call me Chang Yong as you usually.
Chang Yong, okay.
And I think the meeting is still going on. But I think I can summarize 4 key topics which are relevant for us. One is the better than expected world economic growth, but not sufficient at all compared with the past averages, and what is causing this low growth momentum, including the trade conflict and the tariff conflict, and then also geopolitical tension. That's the first topic. Second topic is in advanced economies, many advanced economies, non-sustainable fiscal deficit, and what is their implication on the safe status of government bond. That was an end of second topic. Third one is a possible correction of the extended asset prices, including the stock prices of artificial intelligence related stocks. And the last one, not the least, was about the financial regulation on the crypto assets, including stablecoins. And these 4 topics actually is quite relevant for the current problem that we are facing in Korea too.
Regarding the last topic, is there an effort by, I could see, the U.S. government is kind of wary of multilateral approaches towards international issues. But I understand that the Bank for International Settlements, maybe the Financial Stability Board, and others are seeking to harmonize this regulations concerning the new financial markets and new financial products. Is there any progress on that?
Actually, as you're right, especially for stablecoin, because I think the U.S. position is currently a little bit different from what others have in mind, because now currently in stablecoins, the dollar-denominated stablecoins account for more than 98% of the total.
Right.
And actually, the dollar stablecoin issuance helps to increase the demand for the U.S. Treasury bonds. So
right.
I think the U.S. has some reason why they prefer to more emergence of stablecoins in the world. But on the other hand, many other countries, this surgence of the dollar-denominated stablecoin is a threat to their independent monetary policy. And especially for a country like Korea,
right.
It can be a tool to bypass our capital flow management tools.
Right.
I think U.S. versus others had quite different perspective on this issue.
Yeah. Well, it supports the dollar as a reserve currency.
Yeah, right.
There are externalities positive for everybody with that, but I see it does complicate monetary policy.
I don't know whether it's positive or not, but
right. Well, it's good that you have the interest of Korea in mind. Maybe I just exhaust another question I had on this. I wanted to bring it up later on, but there was this project Hangang on River. This is for digital currencies. It was a pilot project that was conducted for a short period of time, I believe, earlier this year. What's the...
Actually, I think the project, the Hangang project, I'm very proud that actually together with the BIS, we expect that the demand for issuing of stable coins will come.
Right.
And so this project aimed to provide alternative to the private stable coins, which may have some negative side effect to our monetary policy.
Right.
So we want to provide the alternative to this private stable coins while try to benefit from the technological development, such as possibility of incorporate programmability in the digital money.
Right.
So we started this project a couple of 1.5 years ago. Basically, this project is about issue wholesale CBDC. It's more technical, but wholesale CBDC together with a tokenized deposit as an alternative to stable coin. But suddenly after the introduction of Genius Act, in Korea, among the politicians and among the fintech industry, they argue that we need to issue Korean won-denominated stable coins in order to protect our market from the surgence of dollar stable coins. I have several different opinions, but given what's happening, I think we probably need to recalibrate our first phase of this Hangan project. So while we can continue to work on the wholesale CBDC and tokenized deposits, we are trying to persuade and then argue that if the stablecoin is issued, it should be issued by the bank rather than non-bank institutions. And that stablecoin, it is better to be issued in our central bank managed blockchains. And then now I think the Congress will discuss about how we're going to introduce this new system.
Right.
But I think we're thinking about the second phase of this Hangan project in that direction. But we'll see what will happen.
What was the reaction of the vendors? I understand with stablecoins, it actually benefits the vendors because there's no delay in settling this. It adds to liquidity for the vendor.
Especially, I think, as you mentioned, if you think about domestic payments infrastructure, there is not much to improve because Korea already have a fast payments. And every transaction can be settled immediately.
Oh, really?
But there is a strong, large room to improve the transaction cost in a cross-border, cross-border payment. But that is my point. So stablecoin help to improve it, but at the same time, I think tokenized deposit and the central bank money can also help to achieve that goal. So our goal is that by considering other negative side effect of the private stable coins, because that will definitely is something like introducing multiple currencies with different prices. So what we are trying to do is to provide some alternatives, to improve the discourse about the transactions while maintaining independent monetary policy.
Okay. Right. And I want to turn to the second item that you mentioned, the unsustainable fiscal paths that many countries are on. There's fewer and fewer AAA rated sovereigns these days, including the U.S. now by all three major credit rating agencies. But was there any traction on that? I mean, the UK, in the EU, France is no longer AAA. The UK is outside, but they're no longer AAA. Neither is the U.S. Are finance ministers listening to this?
Look, I think if you ask this question to every economist, we know the correct answer. Yes, but how to crack this is a real difficulty, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Because if you look at what drives this unstable fiscal path, it's mostly to the entitlement program, healthcare, pension, and if there's only two solutions to solve this problem. One is either you cut the benefit or to increase tax.
Right. Can
you show that you can do it politically? And that is why has been every government has an incentive to kick the can down the road. So that's what's going on. But once you have certain above this cliff, then the interest in payment is actually become a large portion of this new issuance, and you have very rigid fiscal policy. So once after you fall into the cliff, it's very hard to correct it. That is why I'm giving advice to the Korea government.
Right.
You have to do it a lot before these things happen. Like many advanced economies, it's very hard to correct it. I think good example how we address this issue is Sweden. Sweden is, and after around 2000, after this financial crisis, they introduced very tight fiscal rules. And compared with other European countries, their fiscal stance is quite sound, and they have many flexibility in macroeconomic policies. I really hope that Korean government listen. Yeah. And so far, we have been doing very well. Fiscal soundness was one of the big advantage, strengths of our economy, and we hoped we can kill it.
Yeah. I remember from my days at Moody's, and of course, Sweden had a financial crisis in the early 1990s. Japan had a slow burning financial crisis that erupted later on in the 1990s in Sweden, but they made an amazing correction. They were a country that regained their fiscal strength and stability. And the U.S., going back to the interest payments, that's another problem. The U.S. will pay the federal government something like $1 trillion in interest payments, more than defense expenditures. Some years ago, that wasn't a concern. It's another problem for others, so that then you just have to deal with the monetary consequences, I guess. Turning to the Korean economy, how's it doing? What's the Bank of Korea's outlook? I know growth has been weaker than I guess you would want it to be. Is inflation under control? Where do you see the risks?
Actually, at this moment, I'm happy that our inflation is quite stable, around 2%. So inflation was a problem a couple of years ago,
Right.
but no longer. On the other hand, growth is a problem. And especially this year, we project our economic growth around 0.9%.
Yeah.
But that is mostly due to some unexpected and unnecessary political instability after the declaration of the martial law. Now we're expecting that the growth will recover to around 1.6% next year, but still it's below our potential growth rate. So, and that is largely affected by the tariff and the geopolitical tension.
Right.
So, that's one threat, external uncertainty you're facing. Yeah.
Right. And what is your potential growth rate?
At this moment, slightly below 2%.
Slightly below 2%.
Because of the rapid aging.
The demographic pressures, right. So turning to a big issue, it's become a front burner issue in the U.S. to some degree. The issue of central bank independence. Maybe you could talk about that. So it's become topical in the United States recently. And of course, central bank independence doesn't mean the central bank can do whatever it wants. But what does it mean in the case of Korea, and why is central bank independence so important?
I think central bank independence is important to achieve our mandate, which price stability. So with inflation targeting and the central bank independence, we can always, for example, like when the inflation is high, increase the interest rate is not popular. But if we are independent, we have a very specific targets of the inflation targeting. We can say to the politicians and outside forces that this is our mandate and to do this policy. So I think to achieve the price stability, central bank independence is critical. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, there are other functions of the central bank. For example, in the time of crisis, we are the lender of last resort. Also, we are responsible for the resolution of the financial institution on those kind of functions. That function has to be coordinated with the government, and the regulators, and we cannot do it alone. So, central bank independence is very important for some function of the central bank, but for others, I think close collaboration with the government is necessary.
Right. So for the primary mandate, price stability, that's the key. That's the key. Yeah. In the U.S., when the central bank followed the dictates of the administration, the Nixon administration,
don't ask me.
It didn't turn out too well. But I wanted to go down this path a little more. Other central banks have adopted other objectives, as long as such objectives do not prejudice the primary mandate of price stability. For example, the European Central Bank supports quote unquote general economic policies of the EU, as well as balanced economic growth. They also have a secondary mandate, or certainly not primary, of a high level of protection and improvement in the quality of the environment. Are these being discussed or debated in Korea? Is the Bank of Korea considering adopting other mandates, secondary mandates?
No, I think it's like ECB. Our mandate is very clear. Our primary objective is price stability, and we have a secondary objective is to achieve financial stability, for the sound development of the Korean economy. So I think as you are asking indirectly, because recently I'm being criticized as a weird central banker because we are talking a lot about the structural issues such as aging and housing price and other things. The main reason I'm doing is because it's not inconsistent with our primary objectives.
Right.
For example, like Korea, if you look at the slowdown of recent economic growth, the major reason of the slowdown is mostly due to the aging and the changing of the global supply chain, rather than the cyclical factors.
Right.
So for us to having a proper monetary policy to differentiate what is the cyclical factors, what is structural factors is very important. So we need to study these structural issues. That is what we are doing.
Right.
And, so it's so consistent with our mandates.
Turning to even a thornier issue. So the U.S. government and the Republic of Korea negotiating a tariff and investment deal. And it could, the initial indications that it could involve a lot of investment from South Korea into the U.S. at $350 billion, perhaps. There's been, this is a huge amount. I guess your foreign exchange reserves are about $400 billion, maybe a little north of that. But I mean, are you examining what the questions, the issues, how this would affect external ability? Are you concerned about this? External liquidity management, external stability, exchange rate stability. I mean, how do you look at this?
I think the negotiation is currently being held.
Right.
So I shall refrain from the details. But overall, I think when this issue was proposed, we gave our clear opinion that, as you mentioned, that Japan and Korea is quite different.
Right.
Japan with large financial institutions, a huge asset outside.
Right.
Funding in dollar terms is not a big issue. But in Korea, I think financing $350 billion US dollar terms in investment is well above the level that we can afford to for exchange rate stability. So we made it clear that even if we do the investment and you agree with the US, I think the deal has to consider its impact in our exchange market. And now I believe that our US counterpart understand the difference between Korea and Japan very well now.
That's reassuring to hear, because this would, I think, could really be destabilizing. And this issue of perhaps an investment commitment or pledge that would be supported by some sort of swap arrangement, some dollar Korean won swap arrangement, is that still being discussed?
Since I'm not a counterpart of the negotiation, I cannot comment on it.
I was curious because back in 2008, the Bank of Korea there's two types of swaps, one with the Fed and one with the Treasury, and the purposes are different. Okay. The Fed only does it to ensure dollar liquidity and financial stability considerations in the U.S. But I remember how well it worked back in 2008.
But this issue quite different because
exactly.
Yeah, but this is a long-term investment, so I think Fed has no room to.
No, Fed doesn't do this. Right. The Fed. I agree. This is Looking back, how has your experiences? Before I met you at the FSC, you were the chief economist at the Asian Development Bank, and you were also director of the IMF's the IMF's Asia and Pacific Department. How has your experience informed you as a central bank governor?
They were tremendously important asset for me in this retrospect. Okay, because that experience in multilateral institutions gave me a global perspective. So whenever I examine the problem that I had, I'm looking at from the global perspective. And whether any prescription that I'm thinking of is kind of internationally tested in a method or not. So that's been second. And also they helped me to develop very important international network like you. And then that international network really helped me to communicate with the outside. And then also, I think by observing several financial crises across countries, I am now looking at the financial stability as a lot more important than traditional inflation goes trade-off.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, I understand your term as Bank of Korea governor is approaching. What are your priorities right now?
To finish my job, without much problem until my term ends.
All right. Well, you're doing a great job. You have price stability in Korea, and it's a very sound institution. So congratulations on your job as governor. And thank you for taking it.
To see you, Jesse. Yeah, thank you.